Welcome to our channel. What to watch in March, from Millie Bobby Brown's feminist fantasy mockbuster Damsel to Guy Ritchie's action comedy The Gentleman. It's a very good month for the period drama girlies, with 2 new offerings to voraciously consume. Don't worry if ruffles, dragons, and swordplay aren't your thing. There's something for everyone among our picks of the best new-to-streaming content this March. We meet Elodie Bayford, played by Netflix darling Millie Bobby Brown, in some nondescript medieval land, as she is told she must marry a prince she's never met, to pull her titled but destitute family out of poverty. The royal family Elodie is to marry into may appear perfect from the outside, but the increasingly discordant score, from none other than Hans Zimmer, suggests something is amiss in this kingdom guarded by stone dragons. There are many stories of chivalry where the heroic knight saves the damsel in distress. This is not one of them, Elodie declares in the film's opening scenes. If that declaration feels a bit feminism to you, same. But rest assured, Damsel leans more towards the adult end of the period genre than, say, Enola Holmes, the last period piece helmed by Brown. And Brown's somewhat grating theater kid energy dissipates after the first 30 minutes of this film, at which point this film stops trying to pretend it isn't dark fantasy and Elodie sheds any pretense of being a damsel in distress, shocker, coming into her own as a young woman determined to save herself from the horrors of Aria. Brown makes perfect sense for the heroine in this subversion of the romantasy genre. To embody Elodie, she must snap in a manner reminiscent of the complete loss of control and inhibitions that was also required of her as Eleven in Stranger Things. Brown's supporting cast comprises a shocking number of big names. Ray Winstone plays Elodie's father, Lord Bayford, while the one and only Angela Bassett is her stepmother, Lady Bayford, and Robin Wright commands attention as the cold Isabel, Queen Regnant of Aria. That said, there's still a lot that's questionable about Damsel. There's barely a scene in which Brown isn't very clearly wearing a full face of Instagram-ready makeup, full lashes included. Many of the sets and CGI-heavy backdrops leave much to be desired. There is a nonsensical mix of British and American accents. But that's because this is ultimately a hallmark feminist fantasy mockbuster. Suspend your disbelief and you'll enjoy it, yay vibes and all. This period piece bears little in common with Damsel beyond the fact they're both set hundreds of years in the past. The irreverent Mary and George is perfect television. Not 1 ounce of the enjoyment you will feel watching it will be ironic. This miniseries tells the story of Mary Beaumont, Julianne Moore, who is desperate to free herself of her provincial life in drab early 1600s England. Mary knows she has too much sharp wit and ambition to continue to suffer being locked inside the desolate house she shares with her physically abusive husband, Sir George Villiers. So, mere weeks after his untimely death, she remarries to maintain her status in society, but mostly to secure funds to send her beloved, gorgeous, and extremely mentally ill second son George, red, white, and royal blues Nicholas Galitzine, to France. There, she expects him to come into his power by learning the rules of the aristocracy. This so happens to involve embracing the fluidity of his sexuality. This is a very sexy show. Mary and George is a historical period drama, so there is some truth to it. Though we can't know the true extent of how much the real-life Mary's scheming had to do with it, we do know that the real-life George swiftly became one of the actual King James I's favorites shortly after returning from his sexy jaunt in France. With this title came endless influence for the Villiers family. Every single performance in Mary and George is impeccable, from Academy Award winner Moores to those of the unknown background character actors. The costume design is exquisite. The writing is fresh, and the liberties the plot takes with this historical story are moorishly salacious. 10 tenths. No, it isn't 2019. Yes, Guy Ritchie is really reusing the title of his 5-year-old action comedy for this new spinoff. where the original movie followed Matthew McConaughey as an American expat to London who had amassed a fortune growing marijuana under the estates of the cash-poor British upper class, this limited series is told from a different perspective. Edward Horniman, Theo James, the newly named Duke of Halstead, is the protagonist of this adaptation. He hadn't expected to inherit his father's estate or title, having grown up believing he would be the spare to his hopeless elder brother Freddie's, Danieling's, heir. It is a happy surprise. The title has no practical value. The business is broken, there are holes in the roof, the government is greedy, the payroll is ugly, the staff are revolting, and my brother is a coke-sniffing ***. Edward laments, before realizing things are about to get much, much worse. Freddie owes a Scouse crime family £8 million. Edward's father was hiding the fact their estate is being used as one of the locations for the aforementioned weed empire. Selling the property that's been in his family since the 1500s seems like the only way out to Edward. But Susie Glass, Caius Scodelario, the de facto head of said empire, doesn't want that to happen. Whatever is he to do? James's performance of the sensible younger brother is smoothly delivered, while Ings is perfectly chaotic as the elder brother/posh tosser character, a role he has stepped into many times over the years. The beloved Scodelario of Skins fame doesn't quite manage to pull off the accent she's going for, but the quiet power her performances always thrum with makes up for this. The Gentleman isn't groundbreaking, and it isn't trying to make any statements about the world beyond the idea that class inequality and the uneven distribution of wealth suck. Like the film of the same name, this is an action comedy, so expect blood and violence, and expect to laugh about it. Somewhere in a deeply blue-green color-graded Middle Europe, Kate Winslet is the stuff of nightmares. The regime sees the Academy Award-winning actress transform into the chilling and immaculately coiffed corrupt leader of a crumbling authoritarian regime, with an accent reminiscent of Margaret Thatcher's. She stalks through her stark palace, draped in superfluous red party banners, endless wood paneling, and white sheets. Chancellor Elena Vernham hasn't left the decadent building for some time, and during this period, she's developed a fixation on black mold, which her staff scramble to mitigate instead of tackling the issue of their shrinking GDP and their dwindling grasp on power. Our story starts when soldier Herbert Zubak, Matthias Schoenaerts, is brought to the palace to measure humidity levels a few strides ahead of his chancellor and ensure no one touches her. Vernham specifically asked for one of the butchers from Zubak's former unit, now infamous for shooting people protesting poor conditions at a cobalt mine, to carry out the job. It isn't long before Zubak realizes the opportunity for influence his new ludicrous position affords him over the increasingly unhinged Vernham. The regime starts off slow. There's a fair bit of world building before the plot truly kicks in, but it's worth it. Winslet's considered embodiment of Vernham is deeply and darky funny. Schoenaerts is perfect as the dead-eyed, frankly terrifying soldier who becomes her unlikely source of Rasputin-reminiscent emotional support. With a jaunty score from movie music master Alexander Desplat, complimentary dark, accidentally Wes Anderson set, and a smattering of Hugh Grant, the regime isn't to be missed. Being in its 40th season, Dateline obviously isn't anything new, but each episode is standalone, so it may as well be. This one takes us to Deir al-Balah in the central Gaza Strip and does exactly what its title promises, telling us the story of 9-year-old Elaf and her family. We're introduced to them at their makeshift home, surrounded by rubble and partially destroyed buildings as far as the eye can see. Elaf is a 4th grader who was one of the best students at school when school was still running, and before her family was displaced from their nearby home in the Burej refugee camp. She adores the 2 cats her family somehow manages to continue looking after despite everything they're going through. This 27-minute documentary from Mohammed Salah, Salah Al-Ha, Ibrahim Al-Otla, Ahmed al-Shaya and Marwan al-Sawaf, was filmed during a 4-day truce amid the ongoing siege by Israel on Gaza, following the attack by Hamas on Israel on October 7, 2023. Which is to say, it's an especially hard watch. Each day is the same, Elaf's mother says of their experience: fatigue and misery.